Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today we are back to working over here on the Lucas horizontal boring mill and getting closer and closer to hopefully getting this thing ready to go back together. So in the previous video, we finally got the Turcite installed on the bottom of the ways here on the saddle. And today what I want to work on is getting this saddle scraped in, or get the Turcite scraped in. Kind of last step. It should be really close, but we do need to kind of get it fitted into the bed here that's already been scraped and everything, and get it all ready to put back together. Check some alignments to make sure the alignments are working like they should, and yeah, hopefully get this thing where we can start putting it really back together again. So I do want to comment, I did do a little bit of work off camera on some things over here that I want to just mention and kind of bring you up to speed on. So when we had scraped in the bed, I had this horizontal boring mill sitting on 3 points, 2 in the back, 1 up here in the very front. This is where there are mounting holes. This is the actual pads where it was designed to sit on. And when the machine was built, more than likely it was sitting on those 3 points. And that was where everything was scraped in. And that's where everything was, all the alignments and everything were checked. It's generally a good idea when you can to have a machine sitting on 3 points when you're doing scraping. It's just going to sit better on the floor. It's going to be more balanced, and it's going to be more just of a natural fit. And like I said, it was pretty obvious where those support pads were on this machine. And again, like I said, I suspect that's where it was supported when it was originally done. However, you know, that is a pretty long span. I just felt like I needed a little bit more support. So after we got things scraped in, if you'll notice, I got some more leveling feet down here up underneath the bottom. I put 4 more in place, and they're really just to kind of give things some support to make sure we don't get any sag in the middle of this machine or anything like that. They're really not putting a whole lot of weight and force. They're really just kind of giving some support. And when I put those under there, I did go to the trouble to get the level out, the precision level here that basically is measured to a 0.5 thousandths per foot. And I fine-tuned the leveling just to kind of make sure everything was exactly where it needs to be. I didn't have to do a whole lot, basically just put some pressure in those points, but I did do some fine-tuning. One thing that I did here is, if you notice, I've got this piece of steel that's crossing the two. This is actually a parallel that was ground in by Cash Masters up at Kinetic. He's the guy that does a lot of my grinding work. This is something that he sent me specifically for this that will bridge across here, very precision ground, and that lets that level go across the 2 flats. And of course, we were also did it on the lengthwise. I got everything fine-tuned. And like I said, it didn't take a whole lot of leveling, but it did take a little bit of time to get things really tuned in where it needs to be. I'm real happy with the setup. I also double-checked. I'd already done it before. I checked the squareness of the column here using a box level, basically, or I can put it up against this, and it will give me a, you know, to make sure it's level up and down, or perpendicular up and down to a level. So I checked all that. Again, we had done that before, and everything looks great. So I think we are ready now to really kind of do our final little bit of scraping here on the saddle, where we put that Turcite in place and get things finished up. So let's get in here. What I want to do is we're going to have to pick this up. I have not moved it since we epoxied the Turcite in place. So there's still cellophane up underneath the bottom. They made sure we didn't get anything stuck on these ways. I need to get all that cleaned up. And then we're going to do a rough scraping and then start bluing it up and just testing everything out to get 2 things. Number 1, I want to get good contact between the ways and the saddle. And the other thing I want to do is I want to check, again, how square this thing is to the column. So just like we did the checks before with the dial indicator, running it up and down the column here, we're going to do the same thing again to make sure that everything is exactly where it needs to be. And I will basically scrape the saddle in so that it's matching the squareness of the column. So that's where instead of scraping the ways on the bottom, we're going to scrape the ways on the saddle to make those fine-tune adjustments. Let's get in here and see if we can get this Turcite scraped in. So once again, I got the gantry crane hooked up on this, and we're going to be using this to do our lifting. And just going to pick it up, and we're just going to flip this over upside down right now. And we got some plywood down here. I'm going to flip it over on so that we're on wood and not metal to metal over here on my ways. And we'll see about getting this thing straight. Get this Turcite scraped. And I do want to kind of pull this cellophane off, and I do have some epoxy that's kind of scooted out in here that's going to have to do a little bit of scraping and grinding to get around, but no big huge deal, I don't think. We're just going to have to get in here and work on it. I do have a little bit of epoxy that's kind of scooted out over here in the sides and gotten up against the side over here. The cellophane is in there, but it's still stuck and kind of formed in place. So I'm just taking, again, a hand scraper, and I'm just going to kind of start working on this. There's a big chunk of epoxy right there, but I should be able to kind of cut it right out of there with this scraper. I'm not really hitting the Turcite. There we go. That kind of just knocked all that out for the most part. Still got a little cellophane in there, but I'm just going to hit it again, like I said, and knock the top down. And we got some over here on the side as well. So I'm just going to see if I can scrape that out of there. I've been scraping at this stuff, but I think I'm going to come in here with a little chisel. I got some of this that's kind of gotten down in this area where the gib is going to go. But this epoxy is fairly brittle. It's just coming right out of there without doing any, not very hard at all to get out. I can get that chisel in there easier, and I can get that scraper. I also had some over here, and I'm gonna just kind of, just knock it off. It had kind of gone in and made a layer there. And I think pretty much got it here. That looks good. I'm going to do the same thing to the other pieces and other areas and get it ready to start scraping. Just getting this cleaned up. All right, I think I got these things pretty well cleaned up. I'm probably have to do a little bit more as I start scraping them in just to get everything smoothed out, but I did get all that epoxy chiseled out of there. I will note that a couple of these kind of scooted down whenever we flipped it over. I think I pushed on it a little bit, and I got the Turcite isn't all the way back to the back. I actually had to cut it off on a couple of these, but it's going to be fine. I'm a little perturbed with that, but you know what? It is what it is. If I really wanted to, I could glue another piece in there, but I honestly just don't think it's going to be worth the time and effort. We're going to have plenty of contact area in here. So what I want to do next is grab my scraper. Let's see, where did I put that at? Here we go. So I got a hand scraper. We're not going to power scrape this. We're going to hand scrape this. And the process for scraping Turcite is a little bit different than hand scraping. Even when you're hand scraping, normally you hold the scraper kind of like this, and you kind of come in there and do sort of like that and scrape things out. But for scraping Turcite, because it's so soft, you will just gouge it out. So, and to get the angles right on your cutter, basically what they recommend doing is doing kind of a draw scraping. So you basically hold your scraper up, straight up and down, like this right here, and you just kind of come in here and make your scrape marks like such, pulling them up. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm just going to come in here And I'm going to do a crisscross pattern just like I do when I am hand scraping. And once I get that pattern in here, I will glue this up just like I do when I am scraping cast iron. So let me get my scraping going here, and then we'll get that pattern in it, and then we will check it out. I did change cutters here, just going to one a little bit narrower of a radius on it, so my scrape mark isn't quite as wide. And I'm just putting a kind of blind scrape pattern on here. Once we glue it up, we can see where our high sparks are and really start scraping it in for real. But this is just to kind of get a pattern to start with. Just like when I'm scraping any surface, I usually just start by blind scraping the whole surface and then coming back across it and gluing it up. So let me get this direction finished up, and then we will come back and do a 90-degree cut perpendicular to this. I don't know how well you can see those scrape marks in there, but basically what I'm doing now is I'm just coming back across this at 90 degrees. Creating that crosshatch checkerboard pattern that we're always going after with scraping. And like I said, this is just a rough blind scraping job just to kind of get that crosshatch pattern started. We're ready to pick this back up and put it on the other side, so I'm gonna put my strap back on here. And we should be able to just let it set right down right there. And now we're just gonna move this back and forth and transfer the blue to the Turcite. That should be fine. And the other thing I want to do is I want to check the squareness of these ways on top. These ways are parallel to the ones on the bottom, or should be. And check that with the head to make sure that we have all the alignment like we need. And if not, we may have to take more off of one area on the bottom to kind of straighten this out. But I want to take a peek at that while I'm here. So let me go get my square, and we'll look at that as well. Let me kind of show you what we're doing here. I've done this previously when we were scraping in the bed, and it checked out pretty good then. And now with the saddle on here, I'm wanting to do it again to make sure that the saddle's in alignment. And basically what I've done is I've got again, my parallel on here. This is a precision granite square. This thing is a Starrett grades AA, extremely accurate. I mean, this thing is millionths of an inch square. So very accurate measurement here. And basically what I did was I just took a dial indicator, mounted it to the head here, and we swept this indicator from the bottom up to the top. And in the process of doing that, it is off just a little bit, but it's only off by about somewhere between a half a thou and a thou. It's not quite a thou, but it's a little over half a thou. And basically it's leaning backwards just at least a little bit. You know, honestly, it's probably close enough, but hopefully we can tweak it a little bit. As we're scraping the Turcite, what I want to do is I want to scrape the fronts of both of these pads a little bit more than I do the back. And what that will do is that will hopefully bring this thing forward just a little bit and help get it into squareness a little bit better than what we have now. I want to do the same measurement again, but this time I'm going to turn the square 90 degrees, and we'll turn our indicator as well. And basically that's going to tell me if the front needs to be adjusted from the back. And this is just checking alignment, making sure that everything is square with the head in both directions. So let me get set up to do that. We'll sweep the indicator again, see where we're at, and see if we need to make any adjustments on the front versus the back as we scrape this down. We turned everything. I got my indicator set up again, and we're sweeping up here. I just want you to kind of see the process in measuring, how square the saddle is in comparison to the head in both axes. So we're going up. We'll get up to the top, read that indicator, and see what it looks like. See how much we need to take off of that. It's looking like the front may be just a little bit high, not by much. We're at about 1 thou. So we'll take it all the way to the top and see where it's at. So it looks like we're just under 2 thou out in that direction. So again, leaning backwards. So the front of the ways need to go down just a little bit. So just kind of reiterating what we have seen here. So it looks like this front side needs to drop down roughly about 2/1000ths of an inch. And this side over here needs to drop down about 1/1000th of an inch. So probably what I'll do is I will scrape both of these two one time, and then I will scrape these two twice and see if we can kind of bring it down. I will also mention that, honestly, no much farther than this is out, and now that I have more leveling feet on here, and my head is kind of isolated from the bed, I got 2 leveling feet here supporting it and 2 in the back, so 4 feet right here. I can probably adjust some of this just by moving the leveling feet around. It shouldn't affect the levelness of the bed by much, if any, and we can probably tweak it there. But since we're doing the scraping, I'm going to start with the scraping, and we may do some fine adjusting with the leveling feet to finally just kind of twist things back around to get it where it needs to be. But since we're doing the scraping, we'll start there. So, all right, we're going to take this, tear it down, flip this back over. Let's see what kind of blue pattern we got up on the bottom. We may find something that's obvious that like, oh, there's a super high spot that we need to scrape down and redo this. But based on the measurements, it's pretty darn close. So we just got a little tweaking to do here. And try to get her back in alignment, and then we'll be ready to roll and hopefully get this thing back together. So let's flip it over, see what our bluing looks like, and then we'll figure out what we need to do as far as the scraping goes. So I'm looking at the blue pattern on here, and I'm seeing some things that got me a little bit concerned, and nothing major that we can't straighten out, but I'm really kind of wondering if this may not be causing a lot of our problems. So first thing, we've turned this thing over, so just to kind of remind you, we need about 1/1000th off of the, this side and about 2/1000ths off of this side. And the first thing I notice is that the side where we need the most off is barely touching. And I also notice that here in this center section that we're hitting fairly heavy in the middle, which kind of makes me wonder if this piece of Turcite, for whatever reason, may not be sticking up just a little bit higher. This got this picking up a little bit higher. And if we just knock this down, it might get this down where it's making a little bit better contact. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape this pretty hard here in the middle. We're going to hit all around on the blue spots just to kind of spread the contact out a little bit and try to even things out. But this area here, like I said, I'm going to hit it pretty hard because I think this might straighten out at least a lot of that alignment issue that we got. And we need to get a little bit better contact all the way around as well. So we'll hit some of these. And what happens here, guys, is you can really kind of see it. Like right here, you see it's printing heavy, printing light, and then printing about like we want. And this is just the thickness of the epoxy up underneath it. It got a little bit thicker here. For whatever reason, it was a little bit lower right there. So by scraping this and hitting the blue spots, we're kind of evening things out, and hopefully what we'll end up with is better contact across everything. That's what the whole purpose of scraping is, to get good contact and everything kind of on the same plane. So we're going to hit the blue spots. I'm going to hit this pretty heavy. I'm probably going to hit this area right here pretty heavy, and just see if we can spread things out a little bit better and drop things down a little bit better. This is a process. We'll probably have to do this, 5, 6, maybe 10 times to get everything like it needs to be. But you just make little small adjustments until you get it where you want it. So rinse and repeat. I'm not going to bore you guys. I will show just a little bit of scraping the blue here. I'm going to start here in this middle. So, see, we went that way the last time. So we'll go across it. Just hitting. I'm going to take all the blue off of this. I feel like this one is really heavy, so we're just going to knock all that out of there. And I really feel like just by knocking this center one down that we're going to get this one a little bit closer to where we need it. So we'll go ahead and hit a crosshatch on it. Well, good news. I have done about 3 cycles of scraping the Turcite, and I didn't really show a lot of that. I mean, you guys kind of get the gist of it. You've seen me scrape many times before. If you haven't, you can go back and watch a lot of my older videos. But fortunately, this Turcite, it scrapes a lot deeper, a lot faster than cast iron, and we pretty much got this machine dialed in. I'm real happy where we're at. So as it's configured right here, up and down, I mean, it is near about just dead nuts on. I mean, I'm seeing a little bit of the indicator kind of shaking, but I think that's more just the friction of it running up and down. Here, it's pretty much staying on 0 the whole way. When I turn it coming in the other direction, right now, again, it's kind of twitching around a little bit, but I think it's probably still maybe a couple of 10 thousandths high, but I mean, we're definitely under half a thou, well under half a thou. And it is a little bit high. Typically the front end of this will be the first side that's going to wear. So I kind of like to leave it just a little bit on the high side. I'm not talking about thousandths. We're talking about fractions of a thousandth here. But the idea is that over time, it's going to wear into tolerance before it starts wearing out of tolerance. So I kind of like that idea. So I'm happy with how everything looks. I do want to flip this thing back over. I got my bluing down there and see what my contact looks like. But as long as that looks good, and the last couple of times it's looked good, you don't need to go super crazy on getting the contact on Turcite like you do on cast iron. You still want to have some little oil grooves in there, and we're going to actually scratch some oil grooves in here, even more oil grooves. But it's probably going to be just fine, but we'll take a look at it and see. But I'm real happy. I think we're probably going to be calling this scraped in. Up next, after I look at that, is we'll have to get everything reassembled back on this, and also need to scrape the table into the saddle. So we'll probably go ahead and get some of the mechanical stuff kind of put up underneath the bottom, and then scrape the table in, and then get all that hooked up, and we'll pretty much be back in business. Got a few other little things that we'll eventually need to do, but maybe not right away with the tailstock and some things like that, but making progress. All right, let me flip this thing over, take a quick peek at it, but I'm happy with the alignment part of it. As long as the scraping looks good, we're going to call this part of the job done. Take a quick look at the blue one up here that transferred over. Looks good. That one back there is a little bit on the heavy side, but the other ones are looking real good. I think I will kind of break that one up a little bit more than what it is, but really leave most of the high spots in there. but the rest of them I'm real happy with, and I think we're in good shape. So we're ready to kind of reassemble this thing and get ready to go back on the machine. Happy to be in this point. Kind of break this up a little bit. I'm not gonna go too crazy with it, but I just want to make some of these blue marks a little bit smaller in size. I'm leaving the highs. All right, I like that better. I'm not even going to worry about trying to mark it back up. I left way too much of the highs on there, so no problem there. It just broke it up a little bit more. Put a few more oil grooves in there, so we should be good to go. Well, guys, I think that's going to be a wrap for today. I am pretty much run out of time. There are a few things I still want to get done to this, but we're going to have to pick up on it in another video. What is left to be done, I do need to, on the Turcite, drill the oil holes through and cut some oil grooves into the Turcite so that we get oil distribution on there. I also need to reassemble a bunch of parts and pieces that came out of these that has to do with the cross feeds and some things like that. Yeah, I got to get all that done and then get it flipped back over, get the lead screws back installed, and put the gib in and all that. Really kind of get this saddle finished up over here. But we got the Turcite scraped in. I'm happy with that. And then once we get all that done, like I think I mentioned a while ago, we're still going to have to scrape the Turcite in on the table that's going to ride on this. And we'll have to check alignment again. There is the opportunity for the thickness of that Turcite to vary. So, we may have to do something similar to do some scraping to make sure everything stays in alignment. But at least the saddle is going to be in proper alignment with the head. Like I said, it is very, very, very close. And it should wear into better tolerance over time. So I'm happy with how everything turned out there. So again, with that is a wrap. As always, thank you guys for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Those thumbs up and comments, always greatly appreciated. Hit that bell icon up there to get notifications when new videos are posted. And as always, too, a big, huge thank you to the supporters of the site who support the site through Patreon, PayPal, etc. There's links to that down in the description if you're interested in helping out with that. It is always greatly appreciated. And we literally could not do everything we do to keep this channel coming to you if it wasn't for the support of many of you guys out there. Greatly appreciate those that can do that. And with that, we are going to sign off. Again, as always, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video.